Welcome to Hey Soul Sista, the podcast for women ready to embrace greater joy, freedom, and a soulful life. This is your space for deep conversations, meaningful stories, and inspiring guidance to nourish your body, mind, and spirit. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe, follow, like, and share. Hello, Holly.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to have you in the little Hey Soul Sisters studio. And even though I kind of have known of you, I haven't really known you.
Yeah. I would say for how long time, really, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. So it's it's lovely to have you and actually do a proper face-to-face meet and greet right here.
Yes. Thank you for having me so much. Like you said, to actually get to know someone on a deeper level, even though they've been circling around for a while, it's nice when you get to have that moment to land and just chat, really.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because it's actually my daughter-in-law who is a friend of yours.
Yep.
Who probably first brought it to my attention that you're a yogi.
Yeah.
And I was like, really?
What?
Holly Green's a yogi? How did I not know that?
I feel like it's not a thing that is like, unless you follow me on Instagram or you come to my classes, it's maybe not an obvious thing. Yeah. Kept away in the shadows a little bit sometimes, I think.
And you've been a yogi or a yoga teacher. Is it yoga teacher?
I would call myself a yoga teacher.
Yoga teacher.
Not a enlightened person.
I'm going to say you're pretty enlightened to me because I've been doing some of your YouTube videos and I'm like, girl's wise.
We try.
We're always trying. Do we ever really get there?
No, that's why we keep on keeping on.
Exactly. I've been doing some conscious collective breath work since the beginning of the year with an amazing facilitator, Nicola Unite. And sometimes I'm like, when am I going to get wise? When am I going to finally be enlightened? And she's like, never.
Well, I mean, so many of my teachers would say the same thing too. Enlightenment can be this big, huge, crazy thing that, you know, I also think I have teachers that say if you are here in a human body, you're not enlightened yet. If you were enlightened, you just probably wouldn't be here anymore. Yeah.
You'd be somewhere else on the other side.
Totally.
In the spirit realm.
Exactly.
Yeah. So given that you're only 30 and you've been a yoga teacher, and sometimes I'm just going to say yogi.
Okay, sure, go for it.
For 11 years, how did that even come about? Because that kind of says to me that you were on some sort of soulful path, even at such a young age.
Yeah.
How did all of that come about?
Yeah. So I think everyone's path to yoga, I think there's some similarities and, things that are the same, but everyone has a slightly unique way that they get there, or I guess also timing that they get there in their life. So I think when I was, 14, 15, my parents were getting divorced, all the chaos that just ensues from that. Not always chaos for everyone, I suppose, but for me, personally, it definitely was.
So it was a rough time for you.
It definitely was, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe at the time didn't really realize how rough it was because you're just kind of, getting through it in a way that you can as a teenager, not really knowing anything about life at all. So yeah, that was rough for me. Eventually what sort of happened is my mum, just how she was coping, me and my sister were kicked out of our family home for a little while. I wasn't a bad kid, disclaimer.
Were you in the streets or did you?
No, I wasn't. No, my
surf?
sister was, because she's about 7 years older than me, she had much older friends as well, and they were always house sitting, just magically happened to be house sitting people's houses while they were going away for months at a time. So I was lucky enough to be able to stay with them. So I didn't feel, it was a rough time, but I feel like I was cushioned by people that were older than me, surrounded me, really looked after me when I needed that. I was also with who is my now husband, Blake. I was with him at the time too, and his family, was not chaotic like mine. So I had that as sort of a foundation of stability, I would say too. So I didn't feel like, oh my God,
I'm homeless.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah. Not at all. It was shocking, definitely. And to be honest, I couldn't even tell you how long it lasted. Definitely months. And I would pop back into the family home as I needed to until I eventually moved back in. But in that time, my best friend, who's still my best friend, took me to a yoga class, and I had never done yoga like that I don't even know if I really knew that it existed, to be honest. It was at Yoga Bodyworks, which is still a studio in town today. I think it was one of the first studios in town, actually. And yeah, it was a class full of people. I remember feeling quite, I think as any person does going to their first yoga class, you feel a little bit intimidated and like, what are all these people doing that seem to know what they're doing? I've got no idea really what's going on. But yeah, having a background in dance, I kind of fell in love with just the movement of it. But at the end in Shavasana, which if you've done a yoga class before, you know what that is. It's the end where you're, lying down. Just typically the purpose of that is to integrate everything that you've just experienced. And in that moment, I was like, it was a time where I could just feel safe again. And I kind of made me realize, this is not a normal feeling that I am experiencing on a day-to-day basis, and kind of come back home to that feeling of safety and connection and self. That was kind of a hook for me. I was like, I've never felt that before.
Wow. And such a young age.
Yeah. And I probably didn't think much of it from then, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it definitely sparked my curiosity in it. And it never really sort of left me from there. I wouldn't say I dove into yoga from that point. I think like a lot of people, you kind of dabble in and out of that space quite a bit before you find something that kind of sticks or lands or, yeah. And then after school, I just went and became a yoga teacher. Went a bit rogue, actually, to be honest.
Do you know, I remember my first yoga class, and I was a friend of mine, Belle, said to me, come along to, there was some yoga challenge in town at the Yoga Loft. And she said, come along and we're going to do this yoga challenge. I was like, okay. Yeah. And I remember doing, the first one I did was a yin yoga. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I like this. Yeah. And I knew nothing about yoga. Yeah. Again, it wasn't really on my radar. I didn't really get it. The yin yoga, I'm like, okay, I get this. I remember the frog pose kind of really hurt.
Yeah, first introduction to yoga, and that's what you did.
It was painful, the frog pose.
Still is to this day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then I did a just like a, I don't even know the word, just a normal class where I don't even know what you call it.
They called it vinyasa or something.
They called it a green class, but it was a lot
Didn't
of
feel green.
No, it was a lot of downward dog. It was a lot of warrior. It was a lot of and you're just kind of going from one pose to the next.
Yeah.
See, I don't even know what that's called.
Maybe there's so many different words for it today, but flow, power, vinyasa, something of that.
Yeah,
yeah.
But I remember the room was chockers, and there were even young fellas in there. When I say young fellas, early 20s, and they looked like rugby players. Yep. They were quite muscly, and everybody around me knew exactly what they were doing, and they were all over it, and I felt so clunky, so clunky.
Yep.
Yeah, so I kind of, to be honest, I didn't go back and do that for a long time. I kind of would go and do the yin classes because I just really enjoyed the gentleness of that until I discovered yoga with Adrienne. And actually, I did one of her 30-day challenges after New Year's, which she does, from the 1st of January. And that for me was this, okay, I'm now learning about all the different poses and the flow into each pose and practice and doing it on my veranda, not in front of 40 people.
Makes the difference, doesn't it?
Yes. But I guess one of the things, and this is what when we had chatted previously, one of the things that I'm really curious about is the spiritual, soulful element to yoga, because I'll be honest, I didn't get that from the yoga with Adrienne or in that class.
Yeah.
But talk to me about that, because I know you said that that's something that you really delved into.
Yeah. So I think as a whole system, yoga at its core is a spiritual system. And the way that we practice it in our Western culture, which has really only been, if we're looking at yoga as an ancient practice, we haven't been practicing it anciently over here. So, in the West, we practice one tiny little speck of yoga, which is what we would call the movement part, which is called asana. And when yoga first came over here, it was definitely taught in a more spiritual context and a way of, philosophy for life and living. And then at some point, it kind of transformed towards more physical asana And it was sort of blended with calisthenics or gymnastics. And that's where you kind of see the yoga that we have today, very physically focused. People are quite ripped when they're in yoga classes because it is physically quite hard and quite void of spirituality completely, which is, fine. It is what it is. But a lot of people do come to yoga and have no realization that there is this whole spiritual path, because it's just not being taught. But that's essentially at its core what yoga really is. It's always been a spiritual path, a path to self-realization or liberation or enlightenment, if you will.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what it's always intended to be.
So can you tell me how? Because there'll be people listening who don't really know anything about yoga and the spiritual element.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how, what's one of the, I guess, teachings or wisdoms that would come with yoga?
Yeah. So many. Where to begin? One of the, I guess, how do I say this? Everyone will dive into yoga and maybe at some point start to access the philosophy. Maybe a teacher says something randomly and you go, oh, I've never heard that before, and it speaks to you. So one of the core principles or the beginning phases that you would kind of dive into is called the niyamas, which are, I guess you would say, personal observances or inner discipline. So one of the 5 of those is called Ishvara Pranidhana, which means to surrender to the divine or to surrender to something greater than yourself. And if we kind of look at that as a way of life, or even just, rolling out your yoga mat and doing the physical poses, you can do that in a way that's more intentional towards spirituality. So if you think of surrendering to the divine or surrendering to something greater than yourself, that in every action that you take and every choice that you take, that's a way that yoga can massively shape your life, and you can really start to live yoga as a spiritual practice. So
even, I guess, the term surrender, that's one of the things that, not through yoga, to be honest, but it's one of the terms that I guess my mindfulness guru Charlotte would talk about is, is sometimes you just need to surrender.
Yeah.
Stop fighting.
Totally.
If there's something going on for you, an emotional issue or a conflict or whatever that is, that sometimes you just need to surrender.
Yeah.
So it's like taking that learning through yoga and applying it to your life.
Yeah. Which is the hardest thing to do. It's not easy, and that's where sort of yoga as a spiritual practice, even within the more physical postures, you can either go to that first class that you said where you had that experience of just flowing and it was so clunky and moving on to the next. That doesn't give us an opportunity to kind of dive into what's actually happening inside of us. But if we engage in that practice in a way that's much more slow, mindful, and challenges us, not just physically, but challenges our mind and challenges our inner self, we start to see the inner workings of our own mind, where we might not be surrendering, where we might be really controlling something or really attaching to something. And that's a really great place of insight to go, okay, if that's happening on a yoga mat, in a room, or, at home, then it's probably happening somewhere in my life too. If I'm so attached to this pose, or I feel so out of control and I'm just trying to get control back, or I feel so resistant, or I don't like feeling uncomfortable, then that's probably showing up somewhere in your life. So that's kind of also how you can start to live yoga as a practice that's not just in a studio or on a yoga mat. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? So 6 months ago, you went through something really hard.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what the emotion that you would have felt when you learned that your beautiful little 3-month-old baby boy had a brain tumor. And do you want to tell a little bit about that time for you?
Yeah. Yep. So, our son, when he was 3 months old, was diagnosed with quite a large brain tumor. We, of course, didn't know at the time what the diagnosis was or what the outcome would be. So that was completely terrifying. So once we found out he had a brain tumor, I found myself sort of in the doctor's office. We had already been seeing eye specialists because there was something going on with his eyes.
So you had noticed that?
Yeah. Yes. Yep. We'd been turned away from multiple eye specialists saying nothing's wrong, he's a baby, it's fine. And I just knew, call it mother instinct, intuition, whatever it was. I was like, that's no,
You can't doubt the mother instinct,
can't.
hey?
Yeah, it's so strong.
So strong.
They've lived inside of you. They're really a part of you. They continue to live, I think, within your DNA, within your cells forever.
And especially when you have doctors, medical people saying there's nothing wrong.
Totally. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
And, part of you so desperately wants to trust that they're right. But I was like, no, something's going on here. So I went back to my doctor and I was like, I don't know if I'm being an overdramatic mother here, but something's not right. And from that appointment, she, saw that too, and she sent us straight to the emergency. And that was kind of it. They turned us away a little bit there. We had to really advocate for him. And
so they scanned him there?
They wouldn't give us an MRI scan because they didn't want to put a young child or baby through that. But so they sent us home that day with coming back the next day for an ultrasound through the little fontanelle, which is wild that they can do that. Yeah, so we went in for that ultrasound, and it kind of feels like in my life there's like life before that ultrasound and then life after that ultrasound is how it feels. It's a very distinct moment in time. And I just knew when I was a lady who was scanning us, she was a mother, and I just could tell in her voice. I just knew.
Yep.
And yeah, they sent us straight back into emergency, and she said, people will be waiting for you, and that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, you find yourself sort of having these huge conversations. And I just, in that moment, I was like, I feel like a child. Like, how am I having this conversation with a medical professional? I'm supposed to be a mother, like my baby's here in my arms. So like that moment was just devastating and like complete shock. There's no other way to really, I think, respond in those moments in life. You kind of just feel like your whole life is being like ripped apart sort of in front of you, or just like the rug is being pulled from underneath you. Yeah. And that was from there, we sort of just kept investigating what was happening, and they found, they figured out through biopsy what type of tumor it was, which thankfully it was actually a really great pathology, and he was able to have the tumor completely removed. But where the tumor was, it left him completely blind, permanently blind. So that was a whole other thing to deal with again straight away. Yeah, it was chaos.
Yeah.
The most challenging thing I think I'll ever go through in my life.
Absolutely. I can only imagine. I guess as a mum, as a parent, a mum and a dad, as a parent, and you have your little baby and you have all these hopes and dreams for what life is going to be like. You kind of might fantasize about, when my child's this age or that age and they're playing soccer or they're surfing or whatever. So all of a sudden you're readjusting all of that.
Yeah, and exactly that. You have visions, and it's kind of interesting. What I've learned is I'm like, so fascinating that we have this whole moment of life wrapped up thinking we know exactly how it's going to go. And we fantasize about it, and it can just be taken away completely. And I mean, not necessarily taken away because it was never there to begin with. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the future is never actually there. It's just all in our mind, and we like to think that we know how things are going to go, but no, we really don't. And that's sort of what that taught me. Is as I reflect back on even just being pregnant, I was like, or I see photos of myself pregnant, I'm like, wow, that girl had an idea of how her life was exactly going to go. And, the sport that you'd enroll your son in and what school they'd go to, the friends they'd have, and it just a huge adjustment and shift that continues to happen. Like it's not a one and done, we realize all these things that, he won't do in the way that we thought he will. Like that continues on, honestly, every day. You just become aware of new things that you're like, that will be different and that will be different. And at first that was an insurmountable kind of pain and loss and grief that just like kept coming at you like a speed train, just every day, constantly. But it's slowed down and it becomes your new life. You learn to accept. Like you said, your teacher says sometimes you have no choice but to surrender. And, that's very much the teachings of yoga as well, is you don't actually know where your life is going to lead you. You can, it's nice to think that you do, but you don't really. And sometimes you have absolutely no choice but to just accept and surrender. And that's, all you can do.
And it's interesting when you were saying that just then, and I was thinking about, we've all done it in our life for different reasons. If something happens, sometimes not as challenging as that in comparison, and we can get really caught up in why me, poor me, the victim stuff. Totally. I've got it so hard, and then, that's where surrender sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if we don't choose that path of surrender, sometimes that's honestly where so much of the pain can come from, because you can spend, resisting or wishing it to be a different way. And like, don't get me wrong, I've absolutely had times where I'm like, I wish this was different. Like, why is this happening? And I never necessarily felt like it was happening to me, because I remember I had sort of, I guess maybe being a parent was happening to my son. I definitely went through a why is this happening to him? Like, this is why him?
Yeah.
How many babies get brain tumors? I mean, yes, it happens. You realize when you're in hospital, you're like, there's a lot of other people living a very similar life to me here right now. But, the kind of what was happening to us is something you read about in the news. Like, it's not something that happens to you, right? So, yeah. And I think I didn't let myself get too, like, I caught those feelings, or I'd absolutely let myself feel them, and we would break down, almost every day in hospital. But you have to realize your son is here, and you got to be there for him and help him get through this, which, he had no care in the world. He was the happiest little baby in the world. But
I've seen some of your videos, little Insta stories with him, and he looks so happy.
He's
beautiful,
so happy.
smiley.
Yep. He is, honestly, the most beautiful little person. His personality, his soul, if you will, is just pure bliss. He's, never really complained about anything. He's a very content little baby. But yeah, you do sort of, if you go down that path of resistance of like, why me? I wish this was different. And you try and push life away, that's when life, I think, becomes even harder to bear and to manage, instead of just going, okay, well, this is what's laid out in front of me now. And like, that's very core yogic teaching, is you walk the path that's laid out for you. It's not about trying to manifest this most beautiful, lovely, easy path. It's, becoming skillful enough to walk the path that's been put there for you.
So you were able to catch yourself if you started to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Was there any particular, I guess, teaching or wisdoms or learnings that you recall really helping you?
Yeah. So a big part of my study, I guess, has been in the Bhagavad Gita, which is a text within a text. It's a very famous yogic text that many people study and have found a lot of, I guess you could say, wisdom through. And it definitely gives you that point of having, yoga in action, yoga in life, not just as kind of a practice that's completely separate from life. So the Bhagavad Gita is all around this theme of Dharma, and Dharma is, I would say, a bit of a buzzword in modern spirituality, but really Dharma comes down to what's the most righteous, or what's the greatest thing that I can do in this moment. We definitely have our own unique purpose in life as a individual. There's a universal Dharma that's being played out, and then we all have our own individual Dharma that is adding to this big cosmic eternal law, you could say. So in the Bhagavad Gita, it's sort of like on a battlefield, and the battlefield is supposed to represent the battlefield that happens internally. And it's a conversation between a warrior and Krishna, which you could call that God, which I know is a really icky word that some people have a hard time with.
God, universe, source.
Whatever you call it. Yeah. His sort of path is laid out for him, and it's a battlefield. He's a warrior. He's being asked to fight, and he has a really hard time kind of coming to terms with this and having a lot of inner conflict with actually following through on his path, so to speak. And so one of the verses of that text says, it's better to do one's own Dharma imperfectly than to do another one's perfectly. And so what this kind of speaks to is that we do all have this individual, unique purpose, and that Dharma is usually not always easy. It's often the hardest, most challenging road to walk. And if we sort of resist that path that's there and we try and kind of mimic what someone else is doing because it looks nicer or their life looks like it's going great, then that's when we sort of run into trouble on a spiritual path.
So when you said that, you think about, we talk all the time about comparisonitis, right?
Totally.
And social media.
Yeah.
All of that. And how damaging that can be to our little
Completely.
egos. And
Yes, for sure. And I think it's, we have access to everyone's life these days, or the life that at least they're going to portray online.
because we just put the good things in.
Totally. Put the complete, falling apart moment.
Yeah.
So it's ripe for us to look at everyone else and go, oh, they look like they're doing a really good job. Maybe I should figure out how to do exactly what they're doing, and then I'll feel fulfilled, and then I'll feel satisfied. And we never are really fulfilling our own inner need by doing that. And it might feel nice and you might get like some great benefits for a little while, but then something at some point starts to nudge at you, and that's, you're not on your path. You're on someone else's that might, you might be really great at, you might be doing really good things in the world, but there's something sort of just niggling at you. And I think just having lived that way for a little while myself, when we were in hospital, I just kept reminding myself, this is our path. I might not like it, and it might not be easy, and I might not want it, but it's our path, and I have to walk what is actually there, and I can't run from it. If I run from it, what good is that really? So just kind of accepting that, okay, this is what has been laid out and I have to walk it. I literally have no choice. I can't run away. And so those teachings of the Bhagavad Gita for so much of my life have really kind of steered me in a certain direction. And then, that time in life was, I have no choice now but to like live these teachings.
Yeah. And also, I guess, hearing you talk about that, straight away, I guess I think about choice and that we actually have a choice as well while we're walking that path to go, okay, this is my path and I'm going to live it the best I can.
Yep.
And if you can, live it the most peacefully or joyfully way that you can.
Yeah.
Because it's the choice.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over the last 9 years, I've met many a woman who has experienced horrendous trauma and hardship. And one of the things that Got You Back Sister, the charity that I founded, and we do a lot of recovery and healing programs at Got You Back Sister because we want those women to heal from the trauma that they've experienced, but also to see that they can live a happy, thriving life, because we don't want to be stuck in the grief and the trauma forever. We don't want to live that way.
No. Yeah. And I think we sometimes, when we go through big things like that, feel like all of it's wrong and nothing joyful can possibly ever exist again because all of this has happened. It's hard to hold both realities at the same time of complete heartache and trauma and pain and the potential of, well, there can be joy again. It's very hard to hold those realities at the same time. But if we learn to hold those realities at the same time, then that's, I think, when that journey of moving towards joy again or soulful living actually starts to happen.
I'm listening to you and learning from you as you're talking, but also really inspired, because I think all of us have those moments or times or periods of time. I had the breast cancer years ago.
Yeah.
Everybody has challenges and heartaches.
Definitely.
But it's a choice that we make to go, how am I going to get through this? And do I fall in a heap in the corner of the room, rocking back and forth in the fetal position? Or do I go, this is my path?
Yeah.
And I'm going to live this as best I can, peacefully, joyfully if possible.
Yeah. I think
soulfully.
even just the commitment to going, okay, I'm going to walk it, like that in itself can bring joy, because you start living in a way that is, purposeful and without running from yourself. Don't get me wrong, you can absolutely rock in the corner in the fetal position. But like, can you come back to something again after that?
Try not to stay there.
Yeah, don't stay there. Don't stay there. Go into it when you need to. And I think also be willing to live life in a way that's messy. You don't have to be perfect through any of it. Yeah. But it's hard, but it's worth, I think, going through. I think sometimes it's easier to just go, oh, okay, that happened to me. Why is that happening to me? Like that kind of is the easier option sometimes, to kind of take that seat of life.
And especially if you have people going, oh, poor you.
Totally.
Poor you.
Like such a shame. We had so many people saying to us, it's just not fair. And I remember every time I would hear that, I'd go, but what? And I never honestly really felt that way. I never felt like this isn't fair. because it was what was happening.
And a very wise woman I know says, we will promise nothing. That's one of her Buddhist
That's so
wisdoms
nice.
that she shares with me. We will promise nothing.
Yeah. And I think we can live in a way of like, I'm going to do this because it'll make my life this way. And I'm going to practice yoga because I'll live a completely peaceful and harmonious and great life. Or I'm going to go for a run because it'll get me this. And it's about not being attached to the outcomes of your actions. Like, can you just live this way? Like, even if your life turns to absolute chaos, like, how can you still live that way? Like, are you still choosing that? Or are you only going to choose the things that you believe in when life is beautiful? Like, how does that belief actually come through when life is really hard? And that's kind of what yoga is. It's not a pretty thing.
Yeah.
If you want to, I remember saying to my teacher just after we got home from hospital, I was like, why did I have to choose this spiritual path? Like, would all of this have not happened? Which, obviously is not the case. That's ridiculous.
But that's where our mind goes, right?
Totally. I'm like, why do I have to be spiritual through this? Like, that seems like the much harder option right now. But I really do believe that it got us through so much, and we used it through hospital. Yeah, I think that it could have been a very different experience. It was ridiculously hard and unpleasant, but it could have been, I think, even harder.
You just said something, your teacher. So you have a yoga teacher, even though you are a yoga teacher.
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. I would be lost without them. I have a few have a meditation teacher and to have a yoga teacher, which both of them, it's hard to kind of differentiate. But yeah, I have two teachers that I kind of, I guess, rely on is maybe not the right word, but, go to. And I went to them in when we were in hospital within, a few days, just being like, I need help. I don't know what to do. And yeah.
So even though we are a teacher, you're a teacher,
yeah,
you still
absolutely
have your own teachers.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
you're still learning yourself.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. You can't see what you can't see, right?
Yeah.
And that's what your teacher is for.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. And they have a way of just pointing things out to you that are half the time so obvious, but you just can't see it. And one of my teachers says, often we're just like a degree off that soul path or whatever you want to call it. We're just a degree off. And it can be, the closer you kind of get to it, the harder it actually gets to see. Like, sometimes when you start on this journey, it's so obvious what in your life is not working for you anymore, or what in your life sort of needs to go or to be shed. It's just not helpful for you, or it's not aligned for you. And then kind of as you go on and on and on, it gets a little bit harder to like weed out those things that are not helpful to you anymore, because they become more subtle and they become much more internal. First we sort of like clean up our outside life. And then as we go further on, it's time to like start cleaning up that inner life. The thoughts that you have, the choices that you make, the things that you believe in or tell yourself. And so as we get closer to that, that degree, it can be very hard to make that shift on your own because you just can't see it.
Yeah.
You don't even think to look there because you're like, it's so close. Why would I look in that direction? So a teacher can sometimes just click you into place. I think everyone, if we don't have a teacher, like, what are we learning? We need constantly learning.
And we need to be challenged sometimes. I have kind of said for a long time, I love good friends that genuinely wish you well.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't necessarily want my beautiful, deep, soulful friends to just tell me what I want to hear all the time.
No. Yeah.
Like, if I'm wrong or if I need to be challenged, I actually want to be challenged.
Yep.
And I love that, again, Charlotta and Nicola, that I love that they will challenge me, or I'll be like, but what about this? This is going on? And they're like, generally have something wonderful and wise to say. They may not even think it's wise, but to me, because it makes me think about that situation in another way. And that's what we need sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of like, one of the realizations I had a couple of years ago was I've always been quite an anxious person. I'm like, I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to feel anxious. I want to feel joyful. I want to feel soulful. I want to feel at peace.
Yeah.
And again, there's a lot going on in the world that can absolutely drag you
totally
down that rabbit hole. And so sometimes you need those people. And I hadn't thought about the word teacher, but I go, they are.
Yeah.
Because I can go to them and go, oh, this is going on for me. And they will have a new way of looking at that situation. Or have you thought that maybe you could think about it this way? I love that.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to just be told, oh, yeah, no, that's fine and you're great and blah, blah,
Yes.
blah. No, that person sucks. No, it's all them. It's not you. It's not you. It's all them.
Never you.
Yeah.
And I think it's without people, we're not supposed to do it alone. And I think sometimes we think I'm supposed to know this and I should be able to figure this out all on my own. Like, why do I need someone else to tell me this?
Yeah.
But I think it can be quite humbling. And, I think it's a way of being gracious with yourself is just to go, maybe I actually don't know the best way out of this situation or the best way through this situation. And maybe I need to be kind of shaken up and be like, no, actually, that's not helpful. And maybe, yeah, like you said, your friends being like, consider it this way. And I think if you're open to that, those things are actually happening all the time. It's when we get stuck in there. And it is a very ego-driven thing of me, and that person's doing this to me and this happened because X, Y, Z. But just taking that responsibility for how you feel and how you show up in life. And sometimes you need other people to help you take that accountability.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, do you know what one of the things that I love is, having the realization recently about, do you not see that's a pattern in your life? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been having an issue, like a relationship issue, not with my husband, he's amazing, but with someone else. And Nicola kind of saying to me, can you not see the pattern there? Can you not see how where this played out in this other situation you were in? And going, oh, yeah, we got to break that pattern.
Yeah.
You got to break that pattern.
Yeah.
Otherwise we're doomed to repeat it.
Totally. And like once someone points it out to you, like, and then you're like, you can't unknow it.
Yes.
But before that, you might have just been completely just unaware of it.
Yeah. And I would say, okay, I'm speaking pretty generally, but I think all of us have some sort of pattern.
Absolutely. Yep.
And that's a beautiful thing, as you were saying, a teacher, even though just a really beautiful, trusted friend or family member that can go, hey, have you seen that pattern?
Yeah.
Oh, I need to break that pattern.
Yeah, totally.
So in saying that, again, many a woman, soul sister that's listening to this right now, and I think you sharing your beautiful story and how yoga has helped you and the learnings has helped you through that really, really tough time. For women who may be going through challenges, whatever that looks like for them, and they're curious now after hearing you speak, because I'm like, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. We're always learning and growing. I love it.
Yeah.
What's maybe some of the first step or first couple of steps that somebody can take if they're curious and they're like, hey, do you know what? I can see I've got a pattern going on in my life here, or I've got a problem or, challenges. And actually I want to not feel that way. I don't want to feel the anxiety. I don't want to feel the anger, the sadness, or as you say, maybe you do feel it, but how do you move through that?
So I think, like, as you said, feeling it instead of being like, that needs to kind of get out of my life, is just being able to let it exist and be there and not try and get away from it. It's kind of a journaling practice, which if you're not a journaler, I get it, because I used to really hate journaling, and I just used to think this, like up until probably only, a few years ago, I was like, this feels lame. What am I doing with this? But there is a yogic practice called vichara, and it is sort of this self-inquiry of trying to kind of uncover what's at the depth of every kind of choice and decision that we make. So from a yogic standpoint, the tradition would say that there is, maybe 3 to 5 core things that we all want in life, and that sort of drives our choices and our actions. So we either want, maybe to be seen, to be validated, to be loved, to be recognized, whatever it is, that can be at the core of everything that's sort of playing out in our life. And I think once you understand yourself in that way, like, oh, I'm doing this, or I'm repeating this pattern because I just at the core of it want to be loved, or I want to feel validated, or I want to feel respected. And it can come into our life in, the most biggest decisions that we make or the harder parts of our life, but it can also just be really small, insignificant things. Like maybe someone, I don't know, looked at you the wrong way, and then that kind of triggered that, well, I just want to be loved. And so you made it mean all this other huge thing, and you can kind of get really stuck on that thing for maybe it's a whole day, maybe it's longer. I didn't like how that person said that. And in Vichara, you sort of might pick a certain scenario of, okay, this recently happened and it made me feel this way. And then you kind of keep just re-inquiring why? Why did I want it to be a particular way? Okay, X, Y, Z. Okay, but why? Why did I want it to be that way? And it sounds kind of silly, but as you just keep asking these why questions, like for example, something so silly like, okay, Blake didn't take the bin out again.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, Blake, which you probably won't, but seriously, take the bin out every day. And so like that really is meaningless, taking the bin out, right? Like how does that mean anything about me? But often I'm like, you didn't listen to me again. You're not respecting what I'm asking you to do. Take the bin out.
You're not validating me.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like it seems so superficial, and something meaningless like taking a bin out can become this big, huge meaning that you get kind of stuck on. And so if, for example, you're inquired with that, like I wanted him to take the bin out and he didn't, and it made me feel this way. Okay, why did it make you feel this way? And then it's like, well, I feel like he didn't listen to me or whatever. And you just keep going. And then you start to uncover, it made me feel like he didn't respect me, see me, hear me, whatever it is. And you can do it in really seemingly insignificant parts of your life like that, because they're kind of easier at first to dig into because you don't have this sort of big, terrifying, oh, if I actually unmask that, then sort of what happens. But usually it'll be a driving force to many ways that you respond to life. And once you know it, again, you can't unknow it. So you can start to, I like to teach people to kind of have fun with this. Don't be so serious with life. Like just sort of go into life and be like, okay, what am I going to learn about myself today? Or what am I going to learn about my patterns or my habits or my choices, my thoughts, my inner dialogue? Just have fun with it. Don't take it so seriously. Like I have to figure everything out now in this day. Like be playful. And you know, a lot of, wise men or women from, time ago, they were very playful people. They could just see the joy and the silliness in life, because if we take it so seriously, that's when it becomes, I think it can wreak havoc on you a little bit. But yeah, so some journaling I think can really help if you want to kind of uncover that deeper core thing. You can just keep inquiring with yourself. But self-inquiry as a practice, I think is very important, because how often do we actually ask ourselves, what do I need? We always ask, what do I want? What do I want in the future? Or where do I want this to go? But just being really honest with yourself and saying, what do I need in this moment? Or what does this moment need of me? I think just asking yourself that multiple times throughout the day can be helpful to start tuning into yourself beyond just like your mind or your ego or what it kind of wants to get out of the moment. We're always trying to get something instead of just respond to it and be with it, and yeah, don't put pressure on yourself to be, perfect in having to follow. I think starting out on a path of spirituality or soulful living can feel like, where do I even begin? And sometimes you want to reach externally for things so much, but I think reaching internally first is quite helpful.
Self-inquiry, self-reflection, self-awareness.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
And it can be small pockets when you wake up in the morning. What do I need today? Or what does the day need of me? And then kind of go from there.
I love that. Holly, you're amazing.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
are you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on Hey Soul Sista.
Thank you for having me.
I can't wait for this episode to get out.
Yeah, so fun.
Yeah. I'm sitting here learning so much from you. I love that. Although I'm at the beginning of the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm in.
Yeah.
I love it.
Sucked in now.
I'm totally sucked in.
Once you get in, there's no going back.
I'm totally sucked in. Yeah. So now, and one of the things that I've done a couple of your online yoga teaching sessions, which I absolutely love. I'm so hooked. I keep listening to the Gunas.
Oh, the Grunthi? We do the Gunas in that.
The Gunas. The Gunas.
Just at the beginning. You're doing there.
That totally got to me, the Tamas,
Yes.
Rajas and
Yes.
the Sattva. My Lord.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to tell you what it is. You need to go listen to Holly. But that totally, I was like connected with each of those. I'm like, I'm trying to get to here,
Yes.
but I've been totally here at times and totally here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that kind of comes back to that dharmic way of living, is what kind of yoga teaches us is we all have this like beautiful makeup of that. And so we don't need to necessarily only be one way or strive to it, but figure out, well, what am I naturally and inherently, and how can I use that as a way to carry me through life and on that path, rather than, denying it. But yeah, I love those teachings of the Gunas too. When I first learned them, I was like, that all makes so much sense now.
So much sense.
And you can just see it everywhere in your own life, in nature. You start to, I think what I love so much about yoga, or I think any path is like this, is you end up having a bit of a lens on and you just start to see the world differently. You see yourself differently, and that's fun. I think it's cool.
Yeah. So where can people get more of Holly Green? So you've been doing some of your online teachings on YouTube. Yep. But really, they really need to subscribe to your list to get on that.
If you jump on my mailing list, you can go to my website, which is beingdivinelyu.com. Or if you're an Insta person, I recently changed it to Holly__green__. That was all that was available at the time. I usually post everything there as well. But if you even post little teachings in your stories. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I need to screenshot them and zoom in.
Yeah. Do you know what I just learnt the other day from my mum?
Yeah.
You can zoom in on a story.
I didn't know that.
Neither did I.
I literally screenshot it and then I'm like, I need to read that.
That's exactly what I do too. And my mum just started zooming in on a story one day. I was like, what are you doing? She's like, what do you mean? So anyone out there who doesn't know, you can zoom in on a story on Instagram. So life-changing, actually. You don't have so many screenshots in your phone taking up all your memory. I post a lot of stuff on there, just little bits that I feel that day or little yogic teachings. But yeah, my mailing list is where you'll get all notifications to online classes, which is something that I'm doing monthly at the moment. They're live, but you can watch the recording anytime and you have access to the recording, so you can keep coming back to it as much as you want to. Yeah, that's sort of just how I'm teaching at the moment.
And you're also doing some in classes as well?
Yes. I'm just about to make my debut back into actual real life teaching permanently. So I teach, if you're from Newcastle, I teach at Twine Yoga Studio in Adamstown. So you'll find me there on a Wednesday afternoon in a couple of weeks. And then I'll start doing in-person workshops and masterclasses and things again too. Now Joey's getting that little bit older, you have a little bit more freedom to go back to work. So yeah, you'll be able to do in-person things soon too.
Awesome. So make sure that you jump on and follow Holly. Just go to the Instagram first and then you can find all her information there. Thank you so much for coming and sharing all of that. You're amazing.
You're amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.